Good evening, everybody, and welcome to my heart-to-heart soulful conversation. I'm Reverend Charlotte McGinnis, and as always, I really appreciate you guys tuning in and joining me and hearing the latest and greatest news from my awesome guests that I have each week. And what's so amazing is each and every one is diverse and different and has their own unique message, style, way of living, and all are inspirational and hopefully something you can glean a little bit of support from and enlightenment and healing. Just a reminder that all of these are archived and you can go later if you choose or share them with your friends. They are on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/inspire UTV. And also everything is available on my website, charlottemcginnis.com. Okie doke. Well, today's guest is she is an awesome lady, a good friend of mine, and someone another Alliance of Divine Love minister. We have an awesome group of ministers. You all probably know that by now because I've had so many of them on here. But Karen came into our ministry about 10 years ago. And we have connected, and actually over this past year, although we liked each other in the past, we didn't know each other that well, but we've really gotten to know each other this year because we've both taken kind of a leadership role in the support of ADL, and Karen took the helm as president, and we'll talk about that a little later. And she did a great job, though, helping us to really get a good, stable base and enabled us to move forward in a great way. So, as I said, we'll talk about that more. But Karen, welcome and thanks for joining me today.
Oh, thank you, Charlotte. I'm delighted to be here with you and excited to share.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to have you. And as we were talking just a few minutes ago, there's some things I did not have a clue about with you, which are interesting. And we're going to sort of go through your evolution of from when you were a child till today, because it's very interesting. And actually, it interests me how people's lives what really prompts people to do the things they do and lead us to where we are, because you start out on one path and where you ended up is a little bit different from where you started, a lot different. So and it continues to be so we'll just leave it at that. And one thing you had said, I knew your mother was German, and she recently passed away, and our hearts go out to you and your family. And it's always difficult to lose a parent. And I lost both of mine, and I know that it's not easy. And but anyway, she was German, and she came to settle in Maryland when she was 20 years old. And I'm curious, what brought her here? What made her make that move?
She was a war bride. She married a military man, not my father. My mother was married 3 times. So, her first husband brought her to this country as a very young woman, and she didn't know the language. And, but she was a trooper. She learned she learned the language very early. She took her citizenship, which she was extremely proud of. They, back then they put it in the newspaper and all of that. And she lived in a community called Essex, Maryland. And in that community, there were many war brides. And it seems that along the way, she made a lot of lifelong friends. And it was really good for her because her husband left to go to the Korean War, and she was left, alone. And so they all supported each other. And it's kind of a funny little side story, but my first husband was actually one of her dear friend, war bride friends' son. Wow. So we knew each other all our lives. And she actually took Gerda, who was my ex-husband's mom, to the hospital when she delivered him.
Oh my gosh.
So,
wow. When you look at people's life paths, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, how wild is that?
I know, it's crazy. It really is. But anyway, yeah, so um, she settled down in Maryland and things evolved with, just like life does. And so um, I I was a Marylander until I was about 25.
But you did
And
say that you moved to you lived in Germany when you were a young girl.
I did. When my parents were first separated, I we my mother and I moved to Germany, and she decided to come back. It was a difficult decision for her because she would have rather stayed in Germany, but I think she did it more for me, for my
Mhm.
father, because my father and I were very close. And so anyway, yeah, I lived there as a young child. I spoke fluent German. It was basically my
Wow.
first real strong language. I have forgotten a lot of it because at that point in time, when I was in, kindergarten and so forth, I showed up in kindergarten with my plaited hair and a rucksack, a leather rucksack, and my dingle dress on. And it wasn't that far after the war, and it was not well received.
Oh my gosh. Wow. So you were back in the States by then, and you said you went to parochial school. So you grew up Catholic?
Oh, I did. But not, in elementary school, I went to a regular elementary school. I didn't start parochial schools until junior
Okay.
high through high school.
Mhm.
Yeah. But the Sisters of Mercy were, and they still are, incredibly wonderful people, human beings. Back in the late 60s, well, mid to late 60s, early 70s, when I went to school at Mercy High School in Baltimore, uh, they were progressive. They weren't, very few of them wore the habits anymore. And,
Mhm.
they just were, I had a wonderful experience and have remained in contact, and actually to this day continue to support them.
Wow.
So they
That's
were
wonderful.
a beautiful group of people.
Oh, neat. Well, speaking of a little bit on the same page, last night I watched a Netflix movie, Father Stew. I think that's what it was. Anyway, it's a true story. Watch it. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
If you get everybody out there, if you get Netflix, when you mentioned the Catholicism, it's very interesting. He was a priest, and that's all I'm going to say. So,
Okay.
but I loved it. It inspired me and actually gave me a really different perspective of the Catholic Church, and it's a neat story. So everybody out there, just giving that a plug. Netflix. So you moved. How'd you end up in Nevada? You're
Oh my
still
goodness.
there
Oh
too.
yeah, still here, getting
Yeah.
ready to move back to North Carolina. Yeah, I've been out here since 1981, which is a long time. Um, my husband moved me out here, dragged me out here by the scruff of my neck. I was like, oh, and it,
Had you
that
had
long
any
ago.
kids yet? Did you have any kids at
I
that
had
point?
my daughter. Yeah, I had my
Okay.
daughter. Um, so she started school here and everything, but it was, I had to go to San Francisco at least once a month just because I was in culture shock.
Well, yeah, I can imagine Nevada then. It was probably not much there. Tell
No, I mean,
me.
there was one mall that opened after I moved here, Meadowood Mall, and it was like everything was just very backward for me. I mean, I love the arts, I love the theater, I love to go to New York all the time. My dad moved to New York, so I was really exposed to a lot of wonderful things, and this was definitely culture shock. But however, over the last 40 some years, this little town really has developed into an amazing mecca for a lot of different artistic and creative venues. And I think the vortexes that are here have really drawn a lot of
Mhm.
deeply spiritual individuals. The beauty of the mountains in Lake Tahoe, that's right in my backyard. And so there's a lot of beauty in the area. I'm still not a desert rat. There's no way that I like the desert, but the beauty of it I can appreciate.
Yeah, well, Lake Tahoe is spectacular, and I know many people from California are moving to Nevada at this point in time for a lot of reasons, and taxes, affordability, and just quality of life. So it's definitely probably getting that surge of my friends that have moved there from Mount Shasta, so they're bringing that vibe there. So
that's good.
Yeah. So there you go. Yeah. And so somewhere along the line, I guess you had 3 kids. You have, let's see, Kelly, Robert, and Scott, and now you've even got grandkids.
And great grandkids.
And great. That's hard for me to believe still that that's possible. Yeah. And you were also a paralegal.
Yes, I was for about 15 years. I was a single mom at that point in time, basically, and raised my kids. Not going to say anything bad about the dad, but he didn't turn out real good. So anyway, it was not I had a choice of either teaching or paralegal, and I could make a lot more money.
Yeah, well, and you have to think of that.
And I did. I mean, I made great money. I got bonuses, for different things that it was really good. It was a good chapter in my life. I enjoyed it. I like the legal system. I'm very organized and articulate person, and it really, it let me shine in a professional manner, which I really appreciated. So it was good. But as time went on and I became more involved, I'd always been very spiritual. I left the Catholic Church, though, after I graduated for many reasons, and became a seeker of truth. Studied many different religions and love all of them, unfortunately or fortunately. I think I'm just always excited about theology and the interworkings of the human cultures and how people are supposed to be loving and together. And so I started that journey and actually started attending a Center for Spiritual Living here in Reno many years ago, many years ago, which was actually called Lakeside Community Church at that time. It was before they became spiritual centers around the country. Science of Mind. Became a practitioner with them, and wound up doing, when, I don't know if you know of him, Michael Gott. He's a musician. He's actually the head minister now for the largest Unity church in the country.
Oh, wow.
And in Texas. But he and I became very good friends, and we did Taizé services together, and I did my vibrational healing services, and just, solstice. So, I mean, I really immersed myself in, and it was given the freedom at that church to really, really, really spread my wings. It was an excellent experience. So as time went on, after my father died on hospice, he lived with me. I brought him out here from New York. He lived with me for almost 7 years. And after he passed away on hospice, I thought, you know what? That's something that I can do. That is something that really called to me. And so I met this lady who owned a small hospice here in Reno, and she had lost her daughter, and she asked me to pray with her, and I did as a practitioner. It's before I became a minister. And she said, would you like to come to work for me? And I said, well, I still needed to make decent money. So I said, I'll maybe work for you 10 hours a week. And then it was 15 hours a week. And then it was 20 hours a week.
When was this? When did you go through all this?
About 15 years ago.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden it was, well, my attorney that I had been with all those years, I said, Steve, he said, I know, I can see it in your eyes. You need to, this is your calling. You need to leave. So I went full time, worked for that hospice for a couple more years, actually a few more years. And then just evolution, I was asked to join a startup hospice. And in the meantime, I had become a minister, and I had received my doctorate of divinity in metaphysics and spirituality through the Alliance of Divine Love, and also my PhD in religious studies and human development from New Earth Theological University.
Wow.
And so I was offered a job as their bereavement director and spiritual care coordinator. And so the money was even then.
Yeah. Well, you got we're here on this planet, and the electric bill still comes,
Yes, well, that's it. And you have sometimes you just, I really feel so divinely blessed, because there aren't a lot of people that get to do the work that they were really called to do, and still able to make a good living and be present on this plane, as well as the ethereal.
Right.
So
I think that all of this evolution in your life is very interesting, and it's, you can see how everything has led you exactly what, for all of us too, but led you to exactly this point. And being in hospice is it's such a gift and a blessing. And I used to volunteer at hospice in Florida, and it's one of the most beautiful organizations. Every person I've talked to anywhere, they're all wonderful. Oh, hospice was so great. I went to grief therapy for a year after my father died, whatever, and never heard anything except rave reviews. And and I've been to this hospice up here on a number of occasions, and it is. So I know it's not the easiest thing to do, but because you're in the midst of people's grief, but also you're there to support them in actually a very beautiful experience. And I think they feel that.
Absolutely. I have literally sat and worked with thousands of families over the past 15 years. And every story is unique. Every situation is unique. Some, you can't help but fall in love with some of these folks. And it's just, right now, I'll just give an example. Right now I have a little sweet little fella. He's 97 years old. We had his wife on service about 2 years ago, and she passed, and now it's his turn. And he has given me so many pearls of wisdom. He was an old rancher, taught me things that I was like, you would never think of, how to make a pump to pump water through sand, and all kinds of stuff, really interesting things. And the life review part of it is just, they're treasures. They are memories that I will take with me, lessons that I will take with me.
Oh my gosh.
For always.
Absolutely. Well, you're coming to a point where you're ready to retire and do something else. And and move this way, move closer to us in North Carolina. And that's exciting. But also, before we go there, your husband now is, well, he's retired, but he's also a healer, right? An acupuncturist.
He is, yeah. He's a doctor of Oriental medicine. Ken's a little older than I am. He would not agree with that. But he's been retired for a number of years. He still has a little school where, because he taught at the university, so he has a little martial arts school, and that's actually how we met. All the 20 some years ago. I was very much interested in Oriental medicine, and so he offered these classes through the university, which were basic, classes, and I took them, learning many things. But once I was hooked, I was hooked. I mean, it was, then working with energy, and and it fit right in because I was a Kundalini yoga teacher as well. So all these theories, all of this technology is the same. Qigong, which he still teaches to Parkinson's patients.
Wow.
Is very much yogic in nature. They're all ancient technologies that bring about balance and energy. Mm-hmm. And so, so anyway, that's how I met Ken. He was my professor.
Oh, and one of those stories, huh?
Yeah. Well, he says, it was funny. It was so funny. He, I had been divorced for a while, but I still was not interested in any relationships. And, with part of that, those courses, you had to observe autopsies and that sort of thing, but via film. And so he invited the entire class to his house for a barbecue.
Oh.
Ulterior motive.
Oh gosh. Oh,
ulterior motive.
Yeah.
So we started dating, and he was so funny. He said, I have never dated a student before. And I just burst out laughing. I was like, I cannot even believe that for a second. But he swears to it to this day.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, so that's wonderful. He's retired. You're not far behind. And in this past year, Karen, you actually, well, you've served on the board of Alliance of Divine Love, our ministry, for many years. And you took on the role as president and did a fabulous job of really bringing us into a new place of being, and laid some good groundwork. And during that process, you really knew that you needed to step back and step down from that position. And you recently were diagnosed with bladder cancer. And I find that it hit all of our hearts when you shared that with us. And the good news is you are well on your way to healing. But I really want to talk about your healing journey, because there's so many people, more than I've ever heard or seen in my entire life, dealing with challenges, a lot of physical challenges, and cancer being one of the big ones. And so I want to say, first of all, from what I understand, you had cancer years ago, and it came back, and you feel that maybe stress could have triggered it a little bit. And would you like to talk about that a little bit, and about this experience?
Sure. Yeah. These past couple of years have not left anyone that I know unscathed. They've been incredibly stressful times for everyone. The losses are significant, and they come in all forms. This is really a time in the human evolution period where we are definitely going from chaos into creation. We're the old paradigm is breaking down. All of the spiritual leaders and throughout the world are all saying the same, calling the same notes, that we are moving from the Piscean age up into the heart chakra of the Aquarian age. And it's a major, major, major evolution from the thick material hardness of of the physical body into the spiritual ethereal realms. And that being said, our bodies are remarkable. Our minds are remarkable. We have to stay in a place of recalibration and recognizing that we are our own best healers. I have been overwhelmed with many areas these last couple of years as a grief counselor. It is overwhelming. And, I practice good self-care, but I think the stressors were really heavily related to this cancer returning. And I see it in a lot of other folks too. And I think attitude and faith and courage and a sense of humor really help to put things into perspective. I mean, we all are going to make our transition sooner or later. I am not ready at this point in time. I just turned 66 a couple of weeks ago. And, but I'm ready to let the hospice part of my work go. It has come to the point where so many people are hurting so deeply that and it might just that I need a break from it, because actually I don't want to say that I'm a sucker for punishment, but I've actually been looking at hospices in the area where maybe it would be definitely be a part-time thing.
You'll know.
Yeah, I'll know exactly. But this has been a real journey. My bladder has been my Achilles heel for my entire life. I have always had some urgency. Didn't really have bladder UTIs from the time, after I was in my 20s, but there's something that's been going on for a long time. Let's just put it that way, a very long time. And this is just a warning for everyone. A lot of times, if you ever watch television, you'll see that these types of things, manufacturers are trying to normalize it. All these women that are in their, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s are all wearing, Depends and, making them glamorous and all this other stuff. And that's normal. And this is normal. And, and so I really, as my bladder situation got worse, I didn't really, I didn't listen to my intuitive sense. I thought, okay, well, this is just normal for a person my age. Well, it's not normal. And then back in May, I started really working out again. I love the rowing machine, so I started going to the gym because my other gym had closed after COVID. And I'd come home and there would be blood in my urine, and it just kept on getting worse, and it felt like UTI. So we were treating for a UTI, but so it's sort of a double-edged sword. It's a blessing, and being from the background in hospice, I was like, this is not a UTI. There's something more is going on here. This is just not normal. And so I had MRI, I had ultrasounds, I had about a gazillion blood tests and even more urine tests. I mean, it was like, stop poking me, and they could find nothing.
Wow.
Absolutely nothing. And finally, I mean, I even went to a gynecologist, and because the other cancer that I had was female related. So they took everything out many years ago. But I even went, everything's fine there. So the urologist, he let me watch on the screen as he scoped me, and he goes, well, there it is. And I saw the tumor, and it was excreting little bits of blood as my heart was beating. And that was on a Friday. He had me in surgery on Thursday.
Wow.
That quick. And it came back as stage 1, which is excellent, because the difference between a stage 1 diagnosis and a stage 2 or greater diagnosis is significant. What this meant was that the tumor had not breached the bladder wall, it hadn't moved into the muscle, and it hadn't metastasized. So very fortunate that we caught it when we did. They did a chemotherapy bath on my bladder, which is normal procedure, even if it had been a higher grade or a higher stage of cancer. And I didn't feel very good for a while, but and it's taken, a couple of months to really recover from not feeling these weird feelings. And what I mean by that, it's not just physical, it's emotional too. Until you're given that kind of diagnosis, and I've sat with, I told you, thousands of people, until you get that kind of diagnosis, you don't get it. It's like, I felt like every little thing on my body was now out to get me. I got this little teeny spot right here. Oh man, what is it?
Yeah.
It scares the living daylights out of you. And you have to keep retracting and going back to the truth. And with that, the prayer circles, oh my gosh, I can't even express my gratitude enough, because the energy from folks that are on the Angel Squad, from the Unity Center, all the prayer work from there. I am on lists for all over the world being prayed about, and I feel it, and I know it, and I am able to refocus and say, this is not the truth. The truth is that the cancer is gone. It was cut out. It's gone. But I have chosen to do treatment, which is an interesting, it's not new, but it is being more widely used, and actually for other situations besides bladder cancer, but it's called BCG. And what it is it's a bacteria that they inject into the bladder through a scope, a tube, and you have to hold that in there as long as you can. And what it does is it amps up your own immune system. It gets all your white blood cells congregated, eating up any abnormal cells, and anyway, it's a 6-week treatment, and I'm starting that this Friday. So I'm very encouraged by it. I think that, now that I know, I can continue to stay in the positive realm.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just going to say, first of all, we see you whole and healed, and that, so it is. And I also know that this process has changed you. It can't help but change you, and probably deepened your faith, and made you realize what is meaningful in your life. And so what about that? How has this really shifted you, besides physically?
Right. Well, spiritually and emotionally, I was going to work until I was 70. I'm retiring in January. We've had a piece of property in Granite Falls, North Carolina for about 15 years, and we're going to build a house there. Because my two sons, one lives in North Carolina and the other one lives in Tennessee. And I want to really embrace this, the last third chapter of my life. I'm an artist, I'm a writer. I love my vibrational healing. I love so many things that have really been that I've not been able to practice these last few years, and especially these last couple of years in particular, because of the stressors, the amount of pressure. So I am in no way done. I intend to re-engage in so many ways, but in a much gentler lifestyle. I have been able, one of my beautiful friends, Diane Baker, she's also an Alliance of Divine Love minister, did a beautiful hypnotherapy session that she recorded for me. And I have another dear friend that did an amazing meditation for me. And I take an hour every afternoon around 3:00, and I do one or the other at this point in time, and I'm going to continue to do that. And visualize each cell perfect, healthy, whole, knowing it, feeling it. I've created some other practices that I've actually passed on to some of my bereavement group folks, and I can tell you a little bit about that if you'd like.
Sure, absolutely. Okay. I think everybody, if they're not dealing with it, we all know someone who can benefit from this.
Right. Well, as we all know, forgiveness is probably one of the greatest gifts that we can give ourselves and others. So, that's one thing. Journaling your forgiveness elements, and really taking those people or those situations, including yourself. So anyway, this little practice, there's two of them actually. So this one, the forgiveness practice, is you close your eyes down and just hold your hands palms up on your thighs. And as you inhale, bring the hands up and push behind you, like you're taking scoops of water and pushing it behind you. And as you inhale, affirm to yourself mentally that you forgive anyone who has harmed you, that you forgive them, and bring their face into your mind's eye, filling your lungs with love and that inspiration that is divine goodness, sweeping away any sense of negativity. I forgive anyone who has harmed me through intention or non-intention. I release any ill feelings or bad energy associated with that person. And just continuing to breathe and recognizing that we have the power to release that energy that holds our hearts in pain and suffering. And the second step is to forgive ourselves for any harm that we may have brought about to anyone or anything. And bring into your mind's eye a situation or a time in your life where maybe you had harmed someone, either intentionally or non-intentionally. Bring that into your mind's eye and ask for forgiveness. Ask for the forgiveness. Inhaling, allowing that fluidity of motion to go behind us. As we walk towards the light, we know that all shadows fall behind us. And then thirdly, to forgive ourselves for any harm that we may have caused for our own being, for our own suffering, either on a physical, emotional, or spiritual level, knowing that if we had known the harm that we were causing, that we would be much more gentle on ourselves. And so to just bring your hands to your heart center, feeling the wonderment of life, the heart beating, and affirm to yourself, my heart, I love you. My mind, I love you. My spirit, I love you. And so it is.
Thank you for that. And isn't it really all about forgiveness anyway? I think that's Course in Miracles. I learned that a long time ago. Our only function is forgiveness. And that's so true and so powerful. I have a little bit of a story, a friend who she made her transition. Oh, it's been 12 years ago, I guess, from cancer. And she had a grievance with a family member. And it was, she went everywhere and she really wanted to do the forgiveness work. And she went to a place dedicated to help people with cancer with their forgiveness issues. And she came back, and as we talked, she goes, I'm not willing to forgive this person. I was like, and I was, and sadly, not too long after that, she did make her transition. And I think we underestimate the power of forgiveness, because it's a burden. It's heavy, and it will definitely weigh us down physically, spiritually, and emotionally. So
it weakens our system.
Yeah, it does.
It does. It really does. It causes a lot of chaos. And trust me, I thought that I have done a tremendous amount of forgiveness work. You know, there have been 3 specific situations of significant cruelty. And you know, I thought that I was okay with it. Well, apparently I wasn't. You know, and with my bladder, I just have to say this too. For all these years, I've been saying, my stupid bladder. Ooh. I have a bladder the size of a pea, my stupid bladder. And
gotta love that bladder.
It got really ticked off at me.
Yeah,
said, okay, well, right. Maybe I am stupid.
Show you how stupid I am. Yeah. Oh God. Well, you know, speaking of forgiveness, did you ever become acquainted with Colin Tipping's work, Radical Forgiveness? It's wonderful, wonderful work. And he used to speak frequently at our center in Florida, and he too made his transition about a year or 2 ago. And so I have found this, this whole COVID experience has forced us to really delve in. And I think that because we are, as you mentioned earlier, seeing everything around us shift and change, and we are moving to a new level of being. And I keep saying, not that I've mastered it, because I get triggered, but I want to clean up. I don't want to carry any stuff with anybody anymore. And I think it's so important. And also, I think another thing that bears repeating is a lot of people who have dealt with or are dealing with illness of really any kind, stress is a big factor. And Joan Borysenko, I know I recommended that tape that film Heal, the documentary, HEAL. Everybody watch it. It's so hopeful and gives, I think, so much hope and possibility, and really just great ideas. And so many of the people we follow presented on that. But she said, in her belief, which I do, but she talked, you worked with Herbert Benson at Harvard on the response, anyway, I'll think of it or not. But anyway, 90% of illness in her mind came from stress. So if we can do the forgiveness work and release the stress and eat good and get some exercise and just enjoy I think joy in our lives is huge. All of these factors, we have way more power, I think, to keep ourselves healthy. And we are, you mentioned this too, Karen, we are so programmed to think that it's natural for our bodies to just start to break down. And if you look at cultures around the world where they live extraordinary octarians, over 100 years, they live in joy. And there's not really, some are vegetarian, some aren't, some eat meat, some don't, some smoke, some don't, some drink, some don't. But they all have a sense of purpose and community. I think community is a huge factor in that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as a grief counselor too, that is one of the things, one of my very first questions is, do you have a spiritual community? Do you have a spiritual foundation? Because it makes a huge difference with folks. Truthfully, with what I've been going through, if I had not had the support that I have, it would have been much more difficult for me to stay focused on my truth. Knowing, because where two or more are gathered, we are no longer lone wolves. We are, we survive and thrive as a pack. And,
indeed.
And it's important. We need people that love us, and even if we don't have family members, we have many opportunities to reach out and to create community. And it is extremely important,
yes,
particularly at this time, because families are fractured in many ways. And it will heal the heart, and it will heal the human evolution as well. I think staying together as a community is important.
Absolutely. And one of the saddest things for me is I've done a lot of volunteering for years in nursing homes, and to see so many of those people sitting in the hall in their wheelchair with their heads down, and no visitors, no friends, no family, and it's heartbreaking. It really is. And at that time, more than ever, people need that support, and yet there's so many people with nobody. So maybe if anyone's called to consider, they welcome volunteers at those places, and just to go in and spread a little sunshine, and it makes their day to connect and to know that someone's thinking of them and cares about them. So
does, even if writing little notes, to folks, if you can't get over there, or taking some cookies for the, it makes a huge difference in these folks' lives. Touch. Yeah. And I think that's part of too with COVID. There's been such a lack of, being able to have the physical human touch is so important. Holding someone's hand, giving, just, patting them on the shoulder if you're not comfortable with a hug, but just a touch,
Absolutely.
It energizes, and it's healing. It does heal, on many levels. So
yeah, I had actually, I'm being reminded this was, 30 some years ago, maybe. I used to watch Robert Schuller, Hour of Power, from the Crystal Cathedral, and I always liked him. And he always used to have sort of celebrity guests, and he'd come in and sort of interview them and talk, about God and inspiration. And he had Naomi Judd, of all people.
Really? Wow.
Years and years ago. And she had told a story, and I never forgot it. And it was a story about a young intern who was working in a hospital, and there was an older lady who appeared to be dying in her bed. And anyway, he went in, and he, all her vitals, everything indicated that she was shutting down. So he just went in and was sort of with her and just started rubbing her arm and just paying attention. And within just a minute, she opened her eyes and said, "I didn't think anybody cared." And, it was like, so it is, these little things are the big things. And I think that's what we're all realizing. The little things are the big things.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
And so many times it's like the unlovables, the people that are on the street that, you don't want to touch or make eye contact with. Touch them, make eye contact with them. I mean, it makes a difference. Those words of kindness, seeing, a young mother in a store with children that are misbehaving, and, or at a restaurant, and just say, I understand, and your children are beautiful and they will grow.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and just that someone's connecting is huge. And our founder of our ministry, Barb, her guides, her messengers are telling her, kindness. Just kindness is huge. And so I do believe that it's all about the little things, and we can all do something to bring a little sunshine into the world. And Karen, you certainly do that in a huge way. And we're excited to have you here in North Carolina soon.
I'm excited too. It's going to be an adventure. I know a lot of folks are saying to me, "Are you crazy doing this at your age? Why are you moving all the way across the country now?" And it's like, it's an adventure. I'm just ready. Nevada, as much as, like I said, it has been a good home, but it has not been the home that I love. I'm a Marylander. I love North Carolina, obviously, and I miss the trees and the groundedness of it. The rootedness of it. I mean, right. If you don't water it here, it doesn't grow. So
yeah, exactly. And there's a metaphor there too.
Exactly.
So, exactly. Well, Karen, is there anything else you'd like to share before we wind down?
Well, Charlotte, I want to thank you for the work that you do, acknowledging the broad palette that you have and how many strokes you put out into this world. You are a phenomenal woman, and very much appreciated on all levels. And I want to thank everyone for their incredible prayers. Each one of them is heartfelt, and prayer works. We know that. And I am just so overwhelmed with gratitude. Thank you. Thank you, all of you.
Well, thank you, Karen. And you are a blessing, and we all love you and continue to hold you in prayer and wholeness. And I just want to thank you for joining me today, and everyone who's tuned in either live or later. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to this awesome story from this wonderful lady who's just beginning, I think, to share her gifts with the world. I think there's a lot more Karen Turek to be seen and experienced down the road. And speaking of prayer, if you are interested in receiving prayers from our Alliance of Divine Love prayer team, you can actually just go right to my website. It'd be the easiest way, charlottemcginnis.com, and we'd be happy to get our team praying for you immediately. And everything that I do is archived and available on the website, charlottemcginnis.com. And I don't think you have a website, do you, Karen?
No, I don't. I did years ago, and working for someone else, I've let that go, but that might be in the future
Maybe in the future. There you go. Okay, dear. Well, thank you so much and appreciate you, and all the best. And everybody, thank you guys, and many blessings, and namaste to the world and all of us. And so it is.
So it is.
Bye-bye.